everyone. Welcome to another edition of Founder Wisdom Podcast. Today we have Vladislav Severa with us. He is founder at learneron.net and co-founder and partner at LongevityTech.fund. So Vlad, welcome to the podcast. Can you introduce us to yourself and tell us about your two companies right here?
Yep. Hi, everyone. Thanks, Charles, for introducing me. These two companies are actually the latest incarnation of some of my lifelong passions. And I will start from the learning startup, LongevityTech.net, which is a combination of data science and the inclination towards big data and what miracles they can provide to the humanity. And my other passion, which is lifelong learning, because I'm a devoted lifelong learner myself, and I saw how difficult it is to gain new skills and new knowledge sometime later in your life beyond the university studies. And LongevityTech initially was serving there for myself, but later on it proved to be useful as a new learning experience platform also for other adult learners and also for talent leaders. So at the moment we are business-to-business software as a service startup, freshly on the market. So that's LongevityTech. And LongevityTech.fund is slightly different vehicle. That's indeed a fund, that's small venture capital fund, which is investing into early stage startups in longevity technology. Longevity we define as the movement towards healthier, prolonged lifespan with emphasis on healthier. And we are investing really into pre-seed and seed stage companies, which are bringing something new and exciting from the field of biology, but also from the field of fintech or media, which is serving the ultimate purpose of prolonging the healthy human life. So these are my two current occupations.
Well, we share many of those passions, and that's what will make a great interview today. But let's start with your past here. So apparently you went to my university, Charles University, and you studied in physics and mathematics. So tell us about that background, what you learned from there, and how you could apply lessons from physics and maths to the business world.
Well, yeah. Back then in my 18s or 19s, when I started the university studies, math and physics were the two most exciting fields I could have imagined. And therefore I went to study these fields, and I studied at Charles University. I'm Czech citizen residing in Prague. So Charles University was the natural choice. And I started to study theoretical physics, and I finished that at the Faculty of Mathematics and Physics of the Charles University. Absolutely stunning field, as you can imagine, all of these things around quantum field theory and general relativity and string theory. Absolutely stunning. But I then found that I am more inclined in perhaps towards math than the physics. So the math took me, and at my graduate studies, I went to study analysis on manifolds. Manifolds are the geometrical structures which are in physics underlying, for example, the space-time and some other physical structures, but in math, it's having its own meaning. And that's a very beautiful field of study. So I studied the analysis on manifolds and also the symmetries of some operators on the manifolds. And it sounds very esoteric, but nowadays these are the tools and machinery which is used in physics primarily, but in pure math as well. So that was my study back then.
Then straight out of university, EY decided to recruit you. So I think these consulting firms was trendy in those days to recruit doctors straight out of university. What was their thesis behind recruiting, like major nerds or major IQ type of people? And what was your impression when they first tried to recruit you? Were you like, why is this business company trying to get a hold of me? I'm just a scientist. What was your reaction?
Yeah. Well, actually, I was trying to navigate the so-called real life after I finished my studies. And as I didn't find in myself enough of dedication for the science, I went into the real life. And I was really little educated what's happening out there. But back then in the Czech Republic, there were big 6 companies. Nowadays, that's big 4, but back then it was big 6. And it sounded like the touch of the international global, business, etc. So it sounded exciting to me. And I knew close to nothing about what these companies are doing besides consulting and corporate finance and some other things. So I went to assessment center of EY. It was called Ernst & Young in 1997 when I entered the gate of EY in Prague, and I went for an assessment center. And the assessment center was consisting of a couple of exercises. It was more or less numerical literacy, then language literacy, text comprehension, and understanding charts, and also psychometric testing, etc. And I was good in all of these, but I was exceptionally good in the numeracy test, as probably is not surprising given my study background. So EY was kind enough to accept me, and after EY, I didn't go into any other assessment center. I actually chose EY as my company to stay at, and I was discovered in economics. I really didn't know what does that mean, but after a couple of months and years, suddenly economics proved to be pretty math-rich field. All the things like risk, financial derivatives or credit risk, credit derivatives, and corporate finance. It was new field for me, new horizons, new excitements, and it took me. So actually, I went for it. I also finished my CFA, which was especially fruitful for me with my lacking of the finance and economics background. So I found myself in the field quite nicely. And EY was, I guess, appreciating what I was contributing back to the practice. So it was win-win situation. And I spent at EY 23 years after that. So it was a long joint journey.
Yeah, that's a lot of time. And why did they go after PhDs? What was the logic behind that?
Well, PhD is useful even in the finance field because when you're dealing with things like financial risk or modeling derivatives and pricing derivatives, the common math or college math is not enough or not always enough, and you need a little bit more. And when you go into modeling situations which are untypical and many real life situations and financial products are not falling into something like a common category or a common scheme, then you need to somehow apply deeper wisdom than typical, for example, economics graduate would possess. So their PhD is paying off, and nowadays it's even more common than it was in my days at EY, because now with all those things around mathematical modeling and machine learning and data science in many aspects of the economics or many aspects of consulting as well, PhDs are commonly seen, in consulting firms.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And I mean, in that era, there were new financial products as well being put out, and there were no mathematical formula to kind of describe them as well, derivatives and so forth. So like that could have been. I mean, in that position, did you also get to create new mathematical formula to describe the real life effects of a new financial products, or?
Not that much. I was not a basic researcher, so it was not happening on the ground of EY. But sometimes you need to apply something what is known, but you need to, for example, create a code and create a model which will price a derivative in certain situation, or which will provide financial model of certain situations. So that was more applied knowledge than research and development in the proper sense as you would see in universities.
Okay, got it. And why did you well, your contract with EY ended up in 2020. Why did you decided to leave at this point after 23 years there?
I did have a beautiful journey with EY. I was good problem solver, and clients did like me, and therefore the firm was also appreciating of what I do. And I was in a really decent career. So after a couple of years with EY, I was promoted to partner. Then as successful corporate finance person, I got bigger collection of countries to oversee, an even bigger collection of countries. And at the end, I ended up as a corporate finance leader of EY practice within a region of 22 countries. I was really, taking that as distinction. It was not common for a Czech guy to climb that high in corporate ladder of company like EY. But when I was flying high, I would call it this way, I realized that suddenly I am not, solving the problems as I was used to, and I am doing completely different things, as is common in the ladders of management or leadership. And the skill and the ability which was most on demand, at the top level, was dealing with people, with colleagues and with teams, and actually solving people issues most of the time. And after a couple of years, I did find that this is not my cup of tea, that something else is my cup of tea. And that's the problem solving with which I entered EY. And I decided to take a sabbatical from EY practice in 2016. So when I was actually at the top of my career, I felt that this is not what I should do forever. And I spent a year studying, and that was other incarnation of my lifelong learning. And I took a sabbatical to study data science in Berlin. And why data science? Because it was math after all, and it also is having strong business content. And I was absolutely, stunned after the year of study what was possible back then in 2016 and 17, and even much more is possible today with the very speed development of data science and artificial intelligence. So my decision was, if anything, then data science and big data will be my field from that point on. And I went from Berlin back to Prague, having a little discussion with EY whether I should come back to my original firm or not. But EY at that time was also opening its advanced analytics practice along with other innovative practices like blockchain and other things. So I was given the opportunity to establish advanced analytics practice of EY in Central Europe in Prague. And that I started to develop from complete zero and scratch to something, above zero. But already when I was at the sabbatical, my learn idea, the combination of lifelong learning and big data and data science was sitting in my head, and I couldn't resist. So after having Learn as a weekend and hobby project, I decided to step down from EY altogether in 2020, actually. And I started to develop Learn at full speed. And at the same time, I was also given a life sort of opportunity to apply still corporate finance in combination with biology, and that was the LongevityTech.fund. So actually two very, very interesting things were in my hands, and I started to push them at full speed.
For sure. What is possible nowadays with data science? Because we look at the state of AI and so forth. I mean, you've probably applied these machine learning algorithm and this data science in your own business. So, what is so exciting about that field as of now?
Yeah. When I was in Berlin, the head teacher or the bootcamp main person was telling us that data science can give people superpowers. And for me, that's defining data science probably in the best way. Things which are seemingly impossible suddenly with machine learning and data science are possible. And these days we are bombarded from all sides about the new developments and achievements of AI. The latest probably the stable diffusion, which is the algorithm which upon a verbal prompt can chart and draw pictures which are of the quality of Dali and Picasso, and even can start making artificial movies. So these are the things which we see. The things which we do not see, which are under the deck, are, for example, these things in natural language understanding and natural language modeling. An example is that now we are having verbal conversation and there are no titles. And up until recently, there were algorithms which could create autonomously the titles for video or audio like this, but the algorithms were doing a lot of mistakes. And 2 weeks ago, suddenly an algorithm was open sourced and a model was trained, which is making almost no mistakes, which is as good in natural language, understanding and transcribing into a text as is a normal human. So that's an achievement. That's an achievement which we do not appreciate immediately, but from such point on, a lot of applications suddenly can arise, which will simplify human life and which will make things like this subtitling of movies much less laborious and can release the human creativity for other things which are more demanding than this one. So at Lerneron, we are a lot dealing with natural language processing. That's our specialty there. And another thing is that in the world of human interaction with content, there are so-called mathematical graphs and machine learning on graphs. So that's another application of data science which we are dealing with at Lerneron.
It's fascinating. Is it true that physical AI, aka like robots, aka having an AI navigate this physical world, is way harder than programming an agent online in zeros and one in this kind of metaverse / internet that we live in? Or is it just that there's more software engineers than there are robotics engineers as of now?
Well, the real physical world is much more complex than the world of games, for example. And therefore, it's not straightforward, but possible to teach artificial agents to play Atari games or to play Go in the way as DeepMind and now no human player is having a smallest chance against the artificial agents in playing games. But real world is much more complex, is unpredictable to some extent, and the human brain and human evolution equipped animals or beings like us with many instincts and many ways how to learn about the reality, which are currently unavailable and for a long while still will be unavailable to algorithms and computers. So to apply machine learning and data science in the physical world is much more difficult. But there are applications, for example, in the regulation of electricity consumption. The same algorithms which are playing games on one hand are decreasing the consumption of electricity on the other hand. But still, probably when you will go out shopping and something unexpected will happen, you will have much better reaction and much better instincts than any artificial being, for the time being. It may change, but at the moment, still the so-called AI is most of the time single-purpose, agent which does one thing perfectly, but in the complexity can't live well or not at all as well as people.
I saw the other day on one of my neighbors here a robot that's mowing the lawn, and to me, only that was very impressive to me. It's 100% sure that there's ML components to it because the terrain is like very much uneven, and there's various forces that you need to give the wheels and so forth, and obviously there's the auto driving car technologies and so forth. Here in Quebec, Canada, there's this labor crisis, so there's not enough humans to fulfill the demand of the market, which is very odd, which means that when you go in restaurants you get very poor service, which means that when you go somewhere you need to wait, and it's just very inefficient. So, and there's also happens to be a housing crisis. The prices have gone drastically up, and I have one fantasy, which is to build houses under $1,000. With robots, obviously, couldn't be humans that could do that. So, how far away would we be from having robots that would build your house automatically? You wouldn't have to pay much for labor, but obviously for the materials. How far would we be from that vision of mine of building a house and making housing affordable for everyone?
Yeah, we will have clever machines which will help us to build a house, but still humans will be around, and my estimate is at least for a couple of decades. It will not be automated anytime soon. And I know that sounds like a paradox, and there are two big schools of economics. One is saying AI will replace humans and we will all be unemployed in a couple of years. And the other one is saying, as we see it from the empirical evidence, AI is only adding to the demand for human intellect and human labor at the end. And I'm a little bit more on the side that AI is at the moment adding to the demand for people. So some estimates, which I trust myself, are saying that till the end of the decade, the world will be short of some 85 million of people for labor. We will simply not have enough of intelligent humans to fulfill all the roles which will be demanded by business in the economy. So I think that for a long while, we will not be replaced by AI yet. It may change, but so far I don't see an evidence of this changing.
Yeah, well, obviously it has to do, for example, here in Quebec with various factors with boomers retiring, especially since COVID. They're like, yeah, I'm just not going to show up to work. It's too dangerous for my health. Obviously, boomers outnumber the rest of population. And yeah, as long as they try to have 13 years old work, I mean, that's not the most efficient solution. I believe immigration can very much be a part of the solution here, but it's a problem that absolutely needs to be solved. And when it comes to AI taking over and so forth, well, I believe us humans, we reproduced way too much. And we didn't have any mechanism like they have in nature, aka if there's too much of a population, well, there will be more predators hunting down these weaker packs. I mean, this is very harsh, but this is the world we live in, and us humans, we didn't have these barriers. So right now we're just too much, and we'll always be a lower cast, if you want, of people that are more dependent on the high performance society. But my thesis regarding that is that there's these highly competitive human beings which will never really be out of a job anyway. They're so creative, they evolve way faster than like other folks in society, namely the 1%. And I believe that for that reason, we won't go away. And anyways, I do think that these folks are going to merge with machines before we realize. What do you think about that thesis?
Yeah, I'm with you on the thesis that humans are so creative that they always will find the next job for themselves and they never will get idle. Unless they want to. I can imagine many people would want to, but in general, they will not. And the fusion of people and machines, yep, it can happen, and to some extent, it's happening. We are both having headphones that's more or less, showing where the trend will go soon. But there is another enemy of people getting idle, and that's aging, and very likely decline of the human population relatively soon. I guess that nowadays most of the forecasts are telling that the humankind will peak in terms of numbers till the end of this century. That big and the most populous countries like China are maybe peaking right now, and Europe is in decline already. Other continents like Africa will still keep inclining, but with the increase of well-being and of education everywhere is the population convergence towards rather starting to decline. And I guess that will be unprecedented situation for us, because suddenly less and less people will need to carry the same assets which have been developed, in the previous times and decades, and the youngers will need to take care of the elderly people. So it will be something we haven't seen yet in the human history. Always, forever, we look back, always the human population was inclining, and now we will see something different. So that will be new era for humankind, and therefore also the longevity trend and longevity efforts are, I guess, pretty meaningful at the moment.
Yeah, it's surprised me really much when I checked the stats of Nigeria, 200 million people. Like Canada is 33 million. So like what happened right there is, I mean, that's incredible. I mean, that's almost as big as US. I mean, that's just crazy to me. Um, I mean, we haven't hit the two most interesting topics yet, so let's hit them up because we just have a couple of minutes left. So first, I want to talk about longevity. Me, my thesis with longevity is that first, the life's goal is to live a long and quality life. So quantity times quality. That's the goal in life, and remember these moments as much as possible and relive these memories and these moments. So that's kind of my thesis to life. So that's a very good reason. And also from a business standpoint, if you live much longer, and granted the thesis that you're better every year, which is my case most definitely, and I don't think I'll ever stop being better compared to my past version of myself, I will make more money. If I live 10 years longer than the competition, then I'll make, yeah, like my yearly salary times 10. So, and I mean that's one instinct inside of me, but I mean it's a very good thesis nonetheless. And I do think also that, for example, very prominent character in history that had an outsized impact, like Einstein, although he contributed to the bomb when that's not good, but he developed the theory of relativity. If we could have had Einstein longer around with his brain improving on a yearly basis, I think the world would be a much different place today. So for all of these good reasons, I do believe that longevity is like super duper important. So what thesis of yours led you to go into longevity, and why did you decided to do a fund and not a company specifically?
Yeah. So why not company? Why fund? I am not an expert in biology, and that was the reason why not company. If I was, maybe I would be a founder of some biotech startup. But I'm not that educated and that in depth with biology. But I am stunned by biology, and biology since the human genome mapping in 2000 went such a long way that I believe that the 21st century is a century of biology, as the 20th century was century of physics. So biology is really the field to be in, and I can contribute to it perhaps best by these skills I'm having, which I've got in my years at EY, and that's corporate finance. And therefore, the fund was more or less a logical combination of biology and corporate finance. And the field of longevity, there are more very exciting fields of biology and biotech. Biocomputing, for example, it's absolutely a stunning field. But in longevity, as subfield of biotech, a lot of things are happening. And also there is this sociological pressure, I would say. The threat of aging is actually inviting for paying attention to longevity. And also our medical systems and pension systems running out of funds are another reason to take care of longevity. So there are many reasons to take care of longevity besides the pure biology. But when I stick to the pure biology or biotech, we probably can't, or I do not see how realistically we could prolong the human life in terms of moving the maximum from, say, 120 years to 150. I do not see a way. Some, scientists may see a way, but I do not think that's realistic in the foreseeable future. And what we can realistically do is to prolong the health span of humans. So let's say that we are average people and we live up to our 70s. Then we start to be, sick with this, sick with that. Those diseases of age will not be possible to easily cure. We will need to live with that. The quality of life will decline, but the current medicine will keep us walking, moving, thinking in some way up until something like our 80s or maybe mid 80s to 90s or whatever. And our goal with the Longevity Health Fund is to prolong the health span. So, okay, if we have a chance to live up on our 85 or 90 years age, we hopefully should be relatively healthy up until the 85 and not only up until 70. And we believe that a couple of the diseases, or many of them, if not all of them, the diseases of age, could be mitigated or prevented by paying attention early. And early means in our 50s or maybe even before. And also it turns to be true that many of the age-related diseases are having common denominators. These are called hallmarks of aging. And when I take one of the hallmarks of aging, that's, say, aging of mitochondria. Mitochondria are the organelles which are producing energy in every cell of any animal, including human cells. And these mitochondria get exhausted as they age, and the cells are not getting their energy. If that happens early in human life, it's having manifestation, for example, that your pancreas is malfunctioning and you get diabetes. But it's caused by the mitochondrial insufficiency. And many other diseases related to age and aging are having the same common denominator. So we believe at LongevityTech.fund that we can attack the root cause of many of these diseases. So one of our investee companies is doing miracles and is about to do miracles with mitochondria revitalization or even replication. And similar theses, are taking place one by one. As I said, there are those 9 hallmarks of aging. So we tend to invest into platforms which can attack the root causes, and out of the root can then maybe have positive influence on many of these things which make us feel in awe. So that's one of the purposes of LongevityTech.fund. Other purposes are that older people, whatever we do, probably will have some cognitive decline, and even if we fight against that and prevent that from happening, it will take place one day. So there should be, for example, fintech, which is older people friendly, and things which are mitigating the financial risks of aging, etc. So therefore, we are also having in portfolio some fintech companies or media companies, but the core focus is on the biotech and on the markers of aging and on some of the technologies which can prevent aging from happening. And if we are successful, then maybe the decline in human population till the end of the century will not be that steep. Still, it will be visible and we will feel it, but somehow should smoothen out the peak and the decline into something like longer lasting plateau. That would be the best we could hope for at the moment. And on the other hand, I am probably with many people on the same word saying that living it forever, eternal life wouldn't be too wise to wish, if for nothing else than the reason that evolution would stop at the same time would probably suggest that we shouldn't try to attempt anything like that. But living,
well, if we constantly improve,
healthy
evolution wouldn't stop, right? Especially the human beings that would want this immortality, they would be like major achievers, super ambitious people, folks, right?
Yeah, and also they would stop producing offspring, I guess, and the Earth doesn't have enough of resources for keeping everyone living forever. So I guess that there are many evolutionary reasons why this wouldn't be the right goal, and at the same time it's not a realistic goal anyways. So
yeah,
we at the LongevityTech.fund would want to stick to the realistic and for many reasons good goal.
Isn't David Sinclair like the guy that wants us to live 150?
Yeah. I guess that he's one of the luminaries of the field. Who is speaking about the prolonging even the upper bound. He maybe sees how. I don't see how myself, but he's the specialist in the field.
Yeah, and I'm curious as per why you don't see it. Most biohackers see it. You also claim that data science makes the impossible possible. So couldn't it be possible here?
Data science can help in the following respect. There are so many influencing factors with so far difficult to measure effects on the human body and human health that without the help of this particular technology, it would be really impossible to live optimally or to have an optimal routine. But with the help of data and data science, I guess that the promise of having an optimal routine, including optimal physical activity, sleep, food supplements, medical checks, whatever you can imagine, that all of these things can be really optimized with the help of AI. And that's also one of the efforts which we are nurturing within the LongevityTech.fund.
Yeah, I guess the challenges are in one, tracking all these mechanisms. The alchemy and the biomechanism is so complex, so complex. It's kind of rocket science. So I guess that's one. The second challenge is also clinical studies. How do you can try to mimic aging, right? But you can't really do it. And I had my supplement startup, and they kind of tried to mimic the Alzheimer mechanism with mice that had a genetical kind of anomaly accelerating brain decline, right? But they couldn't do it in real time, obviously. You cannot do a 140 years old test. And that's also a challenge, isn't it?
Yeah, indeed. Clinical studies are happening in real time, and rarely you have a study which is walking along a person for a couple of decades, and ultimately that would be needed. And that will be possible one day with the help of all of the variables and all of the applications which starts around an average person. I guess that it will be possible. But at the moment, we are maybe as a humankind in the phase of starting to collect the relevant data and not yet at the position of having them and being able to assess them.
Yeah, and just to close off the loop here, because I know you probably need to go, another angle that we could take it is by learning. We're still very much at the state of learning, synthesizing information, which is kind of a loop back at your startup learner on.net. If we keep on learning and having better learning mechanism to track our learning and also to remember what we learn, and collaborate with other human beings and build on that, then we might generate an aging slash longevity breakthrough. Would that be possible?
Yeah, absolutely. And even without living for so much longer, being wiser for the most of our lives will make life of higher quality. That's my belief as well. So learning and sharing the experience and getting wiser, that always makes sense. That's a good thing.
Yeah. Well, Vlad, thank you for coming today. Where can people find out more about you?
Well, I'm active on LinkedIn, so if anyone wants to get in touch with me, my LinkedIn account is LinkedIn at Vladislav Severa, and you will find me easily. And then both LongevityTech.fund and Ladner.net are having their websites, and a lot of is included on them on the website. So that's also possible. And if someone wants to write me an email, my email address is vladislav.severa@ladneron.net. So very easy to reach me out.
Right, Vlad, well, thank you so much for sharing that information today. It was a very valuable podcast. Have yourself a great rest of your day.
Charles, thank you for inviting me and for having me. Thanks a lot.
Okay. Bye bye.
Bye bye.